Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz interview series with Oklahoma-born, Kansas City-based jazz singer, songwriter, and educator Tavis Minner. He talked about his life as a singer and the release of his latest 2018 CD simply called A Collection. He was born in Wichita, Kansas, and raised in the great state of Oklahoma. He's a graduate of Northeastern State University with a bachelor's degree and a master's degree from Southern Nazarene University. He's gone on to be a featured soloist for the Oklahoma Hall of Fame Awards, the Oklahoma Jazz Hall of Fame, and the Tulsa Opera, and he's been on tour in Russia. He received the 2004 Teacher of the Year for the Tulsa Public Schools, and now he's calling Kansas City his home and is teaching and ready to sing. So please get to know him and dig this interview, my friends.
Hey, Tavis, thanks for taking a minute out for Neon Jazz. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, a pleasure.
Let's go ahead and start off here. You have a new album that you put out on iTunes. It's called A Collection, and I want to know about this release and just kind of how you got to this point with this album.
Well, this particular project is just like the title says, it's a collection of some of the people's favorite songs that I've done in the past on my past maybe 2 albums, and also some singles that many people were not really familiar with because I didn't promote it as much as I could have. So I thought that I could just put it on this project and just let people know that I'm still around. Yeah, that's what that project's all about.
Well, and it's probably good for people to know with the holidays in the air right now that you do have a collection of Christmas music out there, correct?
Yes, I do. I have a Christmas album that I did in 2012, and it was right after my first project, Unity. And so when I was doing that project, Unity, it was my first time producing myself and recording my own stuff. And I was such a mood to just keep going and not stop that after that project was released, I just kept on recording and did the Christmas album. That was released in December 2012. I'm really proud of that project, too, because I worked with my dad. I got him to sing with me. I got my nephew to rap and also help write a song, and worked with the lady in Tulsa, Oklahoma, who did a duet with me on the first song called Winter Wonderland that we all know. Really proud of that project.
You know, you've mentioned before that this is, putting your own music out has been a big goal of yours, and you just did it. So tell me, how did you get to that point where you're like, you know what, I'm just going to do it. I'm going to produce it, and I'm going to get it out. How's that going to happen?
Oh, man, this is a crazy story, and it all has to do with me teaching. Okay, so I was teaching in 2010, and I was getting ready for a winter program, and I was rehearsing with the kids. And, we, as music teachers, we have these accompaniment tracks that we can order to have the kids sing with. But to me, the accompaniment tracks were kind of boring, and so when I would rehearse with the kids on the piano, it sounded better than what the regular track would be playing. And the kids liked it, too. So I had a MacBook Pro at the time, and I wasn't utilizing GarageBand, which is a wonderful recording app with all MacBook Pros. I said, I've got to learn how to use this. And so I went on YouTube and just looked at all these tutorials on how to use GarageBand. And I just got myself in my room, and I just studied, and I bought all the things that I needed to buy and made the accompaniment tracks for the kids that we liked. And I said, if I could do this, I can make my own music now. I got what it takes. Yeah. I have the knowledge. So then I had to buy the microphone, and I learned about how to record in your own home, and I just got busy. And I started writing my own music. And within a year, it was done.
That's beautiful. So let's go back to the beginnings of your life. Where were you born and raised? It was in Oklahoma. Was it in Tulsa?
I was born in Wichita, Kansas, and then when I was 5, we moved back to Oklahoma where my dad and mom were born. I was raised in Oklahoma at 5 years old until I went to college.
Cool. So how did you fall into that love of music and jazz and gospel and all of that?
Well, it it would have to go back to me being raised really hard in the church. Just so many African Americans who are singers, like our wonderful Queen of Soul, Aretha Franklin. You know, she was raised in the church and she sang in the church, and I always said that music in the church was my theater. You know, it was the only place where we could really express ourselves artistically if you were a singer or a musician. And so I would hear the people sing, the choirs, and the people playing the piano who were not officially trained in music, but they just could play by ear, and I just found that fascinating. And I just went to the piano one day and started teaching myself how to play the piano. And I was always singing ever since I was a toddler. And so I just developed that talent and kept teaching myself. And I started playing in the churches at 16 years old. I was a minister of music for about 5 years in high school, and then in college I kept going, and I was still a minister of music during my college years. Then I started studying music in college later on because I started as an English major. And then I said, hey, I like music too much. I need to study music. But I didn't feel confident in my music theory abilities. But I just took a chance and just became a major. And that's when I discovered jazz, because I had to take all these different classes about music, and jazz was one of them. And I was in this great jazz group called the NSU Entertainers, and we would sing jazz, and the chords were so different, Joe. They were just so different than the gospel chords I was playing. And I was like, oh, man, I love those ninths and flat nines and 13ths and all these different chords. And I just studied and studied all by myself and learned about it.
Cool. So what music early on were you listening to that really left an impression on you?
Gospel music.
Cool.
Yeah. Being raised in the church and hearing those great people that I knew and my family members who were also singers back in the day, like my grandma and my auntie, and they would sing songs in the church, and it would just be so beautiful. It just great music. They were just so into the music, you know, have such feeling. But gospel music is where I really began.
So talk to me a little bit about that. You're an educator now, and you are a graduate of Northeastern State University. You got a bachelor's in vocal music education. Then you got your master's degree in educational administration from Southern Nazarene University. Talk to me about your higher education.
Wow. Well, you've done your homework.
Yes. That's what we do around here.
I see. Well, I had a good friend of mine who was working on his master's degree, and I wanted to become a principal. That was my initial goal, to get this master's degree. And I just went for it and completed it. And I was working toward being a principal, but I just didn't feel that it was my fit, because I kept doing music, and music kept, you know, it was being on the back burner, and I wanted to be in the forefront. And so it was hard to do both. I was performing still and then principaling. It seemed like I was principaling on the side and performing more so than I was doing my principling, if you will. And so I just said, no, I can't do this. I've got to stay with music. So I went back to the classroom so I could have more time to do my music.
You know, you've been on stage. You've been on stage quite a bit, you know, venues and gigs like the Oklahoma Hall of Fame Awards, Oklahoma Jazz Hall of Fame, Tulsa Opera. Yeah. When you're on stage, is it a natural, comfortable feeling for you? Were you ever nervous starting out, or has it just been natural for you to be on stage?
Well, I always get those jitters, you know, wondering if I always wonder if I'm going to really do what I practice. But, you know, what I've noticed is that when I'm singing, I always do something different than what I normally expect to do. So I've just learned to kind of go with the flow. And as my mom would say, you know, just let the spirit lead and just get up there and sing. I don't get as nervous as I used to, because I'm confident and what I can bring to the table musically.
You won the 2004 Teacher of the Year in Tulsa Public Schools, so it's obvious that you love to teach. Why is it that teaching fits so well with you being a singer? Do you play off of both of those? Are they mutually exclusive? How does that work for you?
It's just what you said. I play off of both of those. It is a wonderful combination. I remember being a teenager and always saying that I want to be the music teacher for the little kids that I never had. And I made that happen when I made that decision to study music and make it a major, music education as a major. And so I just find that to work really well together because I love seeing that spark in the little kids' eyes when they find their own voice. Because I remember when I found my voice as a child, when someone else recognizes that you have an ability to do something and they acknowledge that and tell you that you're good at that, and you see that other people are saying the same thing, but when someone with authority tells you that, who is doing that exclusively, you're like, wow, maybe I am really good at this. Because, you know, your parents and your friends may say you're good at football, but when the coach says that you're really good, I mean, then you say, wow, I can fly. So when my teachers and vocal teachers, they said, man, you just really can do these things, then that changed my opinion of myself and my abilities. So I wanted to do that as a teacher. I wanted to do that as a teacher. And every day, I just find kids who express themselves musically, and I validate that they're doing a great job, and I know that it's making a difference. I guarantee it is, because it shows in their faces. It shows in the way they act in class, because they want to be good and do their best. That's my story on that.
So let's go into music, that part of your life. Prior to coming to Kansas City, you were in Tulsa, obviously, and you had talked about being in Russia for some time. Talk to me about your professional career leading up to coming to Kansas City. What transpired? How did all that work out for you?
Singing in Russia, that was just something that just came out of the blue. I had released all of my records before with Unity and Christmas with Tavis, and I produced some singles. And I was performing in Tulsa, and I was getting, people were making videos of me, and they were, sending them to me, and so they said, you should start a YouTube channel, Tavis. So there was this manager who saw my stuff on YouTube from New York, and he contacted me on Facebook and said that he wanted me to sing internationally. And I was like, okay. I hadn't flown on a plane in a long time, let alone out of the United States. So we finally worked everything out. We signed contracts and everything. To make a long story short, my first tour was on November 29. It was all through December in 2015. And I tell you what, it was a 15-city tour. And that was an experience I will never forget. And we had a great manager, and so I was still teaching now. So I still have my contract with my employer, but I left for a month, and the kids knew that I was being gone, and they were following me on Facebook and Twitter and all this stuff. And so I was like a big star as a teacher. The substitute would kind of stop sometime, and I would let them watch me live on Facebook, and it was just something that I'll never forget. And then It continued on the next year. I went again to another tour, and that was a 2-year adventure for me.
You're here in Kansas City, you're teaching, and you're interested in what's going on with the jazz scene. Talk to me about how you feel about being here in Kansas City and what your future looks like as far as getting on stage.
Well, I'm really looking forward to hitting the clubs and seeing what they have, and because being in Tulsa for 20 years, you have such a great following of people when you are in a particular place for a long time. So I still have my fan base from Tulsa, but coming here is just a total different vibe, and it's a great vibe. It's more, it just seems more vibrant, if you will. Not that that's bad or good, but it just seems more alive. And I hear so many great things about the jazz scene here in Kansas City. And I've actually not been to any clubs. I've kind of taken a break since I've been here. It feels kind of good to relax a little bit after all that touring that I did. But I really look forward to seeing what Kansas City has to offer, and people have been calling, asking me to do certain things, and I'm just kind of considering. I like the anonymity of people not knowing who you are, and you're just teaching, and that's all. And because in Tulsa, I was like, I couldn't go anywhere without people saying, oh, Tavis, blah, 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 blah. You're here, you're there. Can you do this? Can you do that? But now that I'm in Kansas City, I'm just kind of like very down low, and everything is low-key, and I kind of like that right now. We talked about that earlier.
Yeah, without a doubt. Without a doubt.
Yeah.
So this is my final question for you to kind of get to the essence of who you are. Everyone has a perception of who you are, your family, your friends, your fans, but you know who you are. So tell me, who do you think you are?
Oh, man. What a question. Lord have mercy. Let's see. Who am I? You know what, Joe? I'm just I'm a regular Joe. I'm a regular guy who just stumbled upon finding out that I liked something, which was music. And I'm just as normal as everybody else, man. And here's a little side note. I just love being around people who treat me just regular and just normal. It's just a great thing just to be able to be alive and well, and you have this ability that can get you a paycheck every month, and you can pay your bills, and you're doing what you love to do. There's nothing like that, to have an ability that is wonderful, and you know that it's making a difference in people's lives. That's who I am. I'm a person who recognizes that.
Cool. I like that answer. It's a great way to wrap everything up. Tavis, thank you for taking a minute out for Neon Jazz. Good luck here in Kansas City. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Joe. I appreciate you very much.
Thanks for listening and tuning in to yet another Neon Jazz interview. We give you a bit of insight into the finest players in Oklahoma, Kansas City, and spots all over the world, giving fans all that jazz. And thanks to Tavis for his time, stories, and his cool. If you want to hear more interviews, go to Famous Interviews with Joe Domino on the iTunes Store. Visit neonjazz at youtube.com. And for everything Neon Jazz, go to the neonjazz.blogspot.com. Until next time, enjoy the jazz, my friends.
Neon Jazz.